to both of our panelists for being here, and it's great to see you. And maybe we're going to get into some questions, and maybe if you don't mind, start off just by each of you telling us sort of the 30 seconds or so, just a little bit about yourself and your role, just to give the audience a little feel. So I know I did not prepare you for that, but if you don't mind doing that, that would be a nice way to start this.
Sure, I can start. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosie Shen, and I'm a career coordinator at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I work specifically with engineering career services, and so my students are mostly engineering.
Great.
Good morning, everyone. So excited to be here. My name is Genevieve Thévenin, and I work at TC Next as a career coach for Teachers College, Columbia University Career Services Office, and we serve graduate students.
So we have some different perspectives, both in terms of the backgrounds of the students that you're working with and in terms of kind of the level of education. So we're looking forward to this discussion, and we will have comments from people in the chat. So people in the chat, please follow along and ask whatever you want to ask. So I want to start off, so just from each of your perspectives, how prepared are your students, the students that you work with, to find a job and succeed in the workplace? So do they, how prepared are they? And maybe are there things that, might be done a little bit differently? So I know, Rosie, we start with you.
Sure. So I work with, to give a little bit more context, our college, we have, our career services serve undergraduate students, graduate students, but not postdocs. So I see students from all kinds of backgrounds, and then we have a huge population here. So our office will serve more than 10,000 students in our college. We just wrapped up our career fair just yesterday, that we have 2-day career fair for spring. And I would say the students' preparedness varies a lot. So I've seen students who are very prepared. Like, for example, the past 2 days, I've seen students talking to employers. They're very comfortable advocating for themselves, introducing themselves, and then communicating their skill sets in trying to get internship and job opportunities. But we also are seeing students who never come to the career fair or who don't know how to approach job search at all. In our one-on-one coaching appointments, a little bit more. So they come without knowing what is the right way to even start a job searching. So I think their preparedness varies a little bit. But in general, if I speak to our engineering students, I think they are all prepared with their technical skills. They've learned a lot in their class. They know what are some skills they are bringing into the workforce. But in terms of communicating their competencies, I think a lot of them still need some development.
Yeah, and I want to get to Genevieve in a second, but one follow-up just before we move on. You mentioned, some are more prepared than others to really be able to interview and find jobs. Do you have a sense as why that is? Are there people who sort of go through especially undergraduate, and just sort of are focused on school and not maybe thinking about the next step as much, and others come in a little bit more intentional, as the guy was mentioning, with regard to their career?
Yeah, I definitely see that pattern. Some of the students, they are really focused on their school. So I sometimes will see students with 4.0, like they're very dedicated to their schoolwork. They engage with, for example, some research opportunities. They're thinking about going to grad school, but maybe approaching the graduation, they started to make plan Bs for their graduation. So they're not thinking too much about post-graduation plans. But there are definitely students who start looking for internships in their freshman year. I've seen students who, like, literally the first week or second week of the semester, I started seeing freshmen, first-year students coming to us to review their resume. So I definitely see students who are very dedicated and motivated, but also students who only come to see us when it's last minute, like senior year, last semester. I think that really has a difference in terms of their community, their background. Then some of the students who are less prepared are actually first generation. They've never gone through the college experience before. So nobody tells them what to do in terms of preparation.
Great. Great. We'll definitely talk more about all of this. Genevieve, I'd love to hear your perspective on what you've seen at TC.
Definitely. Some similarities to what Rosie shared in terms of different levels of student preparedness. And one thing I really find is that students are usually well prepared in the sense that their academics have prepared them for what they're going to do in the workplace, but they often don't have the confidence to speak to how their academic skills connect to what they're going to do in the workplace. And so this is where we really encourage students to have some externships, internships, opportunities that'll really help them understand the connection between those two before they join the workforce, so that they can speak confidently when they're talking to employers and when they're going through their interview process. And they should keep the NACE core competencies in mind, thinking about how they're developing critical thinking skills, leadership skills, and teamwork skills.
I can imagine all that's lots of different things to keep in mind. And sort of, I guess, asking sort of the same thing I asked Rosie, are there places maybe where are there reasons that you see for the differences, like between, who's more prepared and who's less prepared?
Similar to what Rosie said, some students are better at finding the services for students. Well, I don't want to say better, but they have the opportunity to get started early, get the ball running early, visiting us. And the challenge is that at TC, we are only having students for 2 years at the most at sometimes. And so students really should get started the sooner the better in terms of connecting with our office, understanding our services, and coming to our events. Just like Rosie mentioned, there are the students who you see at every event, and there are the students who come to coaching and they're not well versed in what are the services we have to offer, how do they find the events, and how do they get connected to the resources that we offer.
All right. And following on that, are there ways in which you would imagine the courses could be better connected in some ways to help people become, whether it's maybe just making people more aware of your services or whether there is more of a practical component? At TC, I know in particular, the Teachers College at Columbia, where I also teach part-time. I mean, most of the courses are pretty theory heavy also, right? There's a lot of theory. I know my course is kind of more practical, I think, than most. But so do you feel that people, are there things that you could imagine that would help kind of get the people who aren't as aware a little bit more of a leg up early on?
Yeah, definitely. So at TC Next, we're constantly bridging that gap. And so thinking about, we have something called Career Champions, where we support faculty in learning more about TC Next services, our theory-based and research-informed curriculum, the TC Nexus, and how they can refer students to our services. And so this really gives them an opportunity to learn about what we do, how they can get students in their door when students are asking them career-related questions. And we also even provide a blurb that faculty can put in their syllabi so that students can be aware of where we're located, how to access our website, and how to take advantage of everything that comes out of our office.
Yeah, similarly, we're also having similar structure, like we also call them career champions. So we reach out to our academic advisors and then faculties to try to engage with students. Like, they are the one who's frontline working with students on a day-to-day basis. And then they're more closely connected with communities in their programs. So we host events every semester, try to update them on what are some services that we offer and any updates on our end, what are some trends that we're seeing. And then we also try to visit their classes. So we have a request form where faculties and staff, they could request a workshop or some of the events from us that we can go to one of their classes to speak. And then some of the faculties, they allow us to speak, for example, 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes we had a privilege to talk at one class on specific topic that they request. We also are strategically developing some of the relationship with some of the departments who's a little bit more interested in investing their time or developing their curriculum to embed career development. We have series of career development workshops. For example, freshman year, first year class, there's one specific course that we go to their class and then talk about the foundations of career development, career readiness competencies, NACE career readiness competencies. And then second year, we started to talk about networking. Third year, more internship, job search. And then senior year, like, how do you prepare yourself for the workforce or for negotiation? So that allows us to not try to throw everything at our students right away, but we can pace out a little bit over the years.
Great. And we already have a question. Yifan asked, this one actually is particularly for Rosie because it's undergrad related. How do you guide students in identifying potential career paths when they're still at the stage where they're exploring their interests. So, undergraduate students, and the question says, tend to be more confused about what they can do and what they want to do. So how do you work with students in that, who are coming with those kinds of questions to help guide them on a path?
Thank you for that question. And I actually would argue maybe I've also seen confused graduate students and especially PhD students in our programs where they are dedicated to go to academia after graduation, but then they figured, oh, maybe this is not something that I wanted to do and then I want to explore some of the industry options, and they're a little bit more confused compared to undergraduate students. But definitely, I think we are leaning towards using some of the theoretical background. For example, we use cognitive information processing. That's probably our structure. To briefly introduce that theory is we help students explore themselves first, help them understand what they're interested in, and then what's important to their career goal, and what are some skills and strengths that they have. So that they could help them figure out what are some things that they're interested in, and then what are some options based on their interest. And then on the other hand, we also try to figure out a list of the options that's available for the students. For example, we have ONET, which is the website that I could share share the link later in the chat. It's a database, I think, developed by Department of Labor Statistics. They have a million of different kinds of occupations listed on their website, and then you could filter that based on your whole and code career interests. There are also other ways, based on your value. So the database is really powerful. I usually show my students, if they're still exploring, I help them identify their interests, and then I go to the database to help them figure out what are some options. But also on the other hand, I encourage students to explore our first destination survey results outcomes. So we collect where our graduates end up going after they graduate, and then we have a database of all the listed alumni, what are some positions of employment they ended up taking. So and then it's department specific or major specific, so student can get an idea based on the program they're in, so they can see where alumni ended up working at. And then a lot of my students found this tool really helpful because they can know what their what their degree can translate into.
Yeah, fantastic. Genevieve, do you have sort of some similar things to say? Especially now, I think we've established, graduate students are confused and undergraduates are just uncertain. So maybe based on that, does that give you some things you want to add to this?
Absolutely. Everything Rosie said really resonates, is that we do have graduate students and PhD students who maybe think they're going to go into research, or maybe think that that's not the pathway for them, and then want to talk about other industry opportunities. And so working with those students, we often coach from strengths, like Rosie was talking about interests. We do strengths-based coaching. We offer students opportunity to take assessments so that they can learn more about their strengths if they're not sure what they are. And definitely we want to also lean into their interests, because we want students to make sure that whatever they're going into is going to be something that's meaningful and valuable to them. And that is how we help them get there. So partnering with the students, asking them the tough questions, and really pushing their thinking about, what didn't you like? What do you like? And how can we move the needle towards what you do like, so that you end up in a space where you feel like you're going to thrive and be successful and actually be doing work that you think is purposeful.
Fantastic. Next question, actually another question from Gary, who asks, do you still use assessment instruments for interests, preferences, and the like? So, for example, the Holland self-directed search, Myers-Briggs, those kinds of things. Are those instruments then that people still use in this field? Genevieve, you want to start with this one?
Sure. In our office, we partner with Gallup, the strengths-based assessment. And so we typically use that. It's usually you can get the first 5 strengths for free. So it's a good opportunity for students. We love to promote free to low cost opportunities that students can learn more about themselves. And there are other free-based opportunities that we may use. In our office, we don't particularly use Myers-Briggs. We usually go with the strengths-based assessments.
Yeah, our office do not administer any assessments, but our university, we have an Illinois Leadership Center. They also partner with Gallup, where students can actually have the strength request and then figure that out. And then our office, we just, based on their results, we help them. We have this coaching conversation to help them navigate that. And then also our centralized career services, they administer, I believe, strong interest inventory. This is something, and then they're also looking at self-directed search, which is whole and code, another type of whole and code assessment. But I don't think we have any office utilizing Myers-Briggs. We focus more on the strength and then their interests.
Okay, kind of shifting gears just maybe a little bit. Do either of you ever recommend that students prepare by using methods outside of higher ed to complement their experience? Outside courses, other platforms, other certifications, maybe beyond just networking. So I'm curious to know if you've recommended that and how those complement what you have at the university and how you found those to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely recommend students to get internships, like get real life experiences or research opportunities on campus. So we strongly recommend our students to have some extracurricular activities that's related to their academics, but not just taking classes or building their skills, but try to have this real life experience, try to solve the problems. And we also have students interested in developing certain skill sets. And then I think it doesn't hurt to have some certifications. And I believe our university is contracted with LinkedIn Learning. So I sometimes recommend students go on LinkedIn Learning to get some certificates around that.
Great. And that's through an actual partnership with the university. So does it appear like, does that affect the way it appears in their, I guess it doesn't go on their Illinois transcripts, but does that, how does the partnership work and how does that feel different to the students than just going out to LinkedIn Learning? I'm just kind of curious, like what's specific about the partnership that's different than just, hey, go to LinkedIn or wherever and do it. I'm just curious where the
I don't think there's, thank you for the question and thank you for asking for clarification. I don't think there's official partnership like we're pushing it to students. It's just a resource that's available to them. I actually don't know what is it actually behind the strategic planning or around that, and it's not something specific to the career services. I think it's offered for the entire university. Both faculty, staff, and students can have access to it. So I guess it's just a benefit of having a LinkedIn account to register using your Illinois email.
Got it. Genevieve.
Thank you. And so outside of LinkedIn and LinkedIn Learning, I might also recommend some free and low-cost resources, such as Coursera for students, other places where they can find opportunities to upskill or sharpen something that they're working on. And also professional organizations. I know you said beyond networking, but I really try to emphasize that to students because now is the time when they're able to get low-cost memberships and they don't have to pay those professional fees that might break the bank for some students. And so they really have an opportunity not only to network, but some of those professional organizations may have their own job boards, their own professional development opportunities. So it really does allow for students to really expand how they're upskilling and diversifying their job search through different various job boards and also directly on employer websites. Some employers are really great in their job descriptions about pointing to resources and things like that. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's really a gem when a student can find that. And so I really like to encourage students to make sure that they're perusing the company websites that they're interested in, because they may mention a resource that maybe none of us are aware of, and then they can take advantage of that.
Fantastic. I had another question. This one from Stacy, who asks, how can students apply their strengths-based insights when transitioning from higher ed to the workforce? So I think we've talked a little bit about how get people to understand their strengths, but then how can they take that as part of the transition from higher education to the workforce? Genevieve, you want to do this one first? Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. And I would say connecting it to the job description. So looking at the job description and really identifying what are the top skills that you're going to be using in this job description and how do they relate to the skills that you have. And so that way a student can speak more confidently to the connection. A student can speak more confidently to how this skill actually is applicable in this particular job, so that when they're answering those interview questions, they will have practice what the connection is and be able to relay that to the potential employers.
Yeah, I think similar to what Genevieve have shared, I think we also try to coach students to utilize the language of their strength in their interview preparation or preparing their application materials, cover letter, or resumes. So I think one of the challenges for a lot of students is they know what they're good at, but they don't have the exact language to describe what they're actually good at. So I think the strengths-based insight actually offered them this language to communicate their achievements and their strength to employers.
All right, well, thanks. The questions keep coming. So here's a question from Gary, who raises that on the corporate side, there is often a more nefarious goal for engaging interns, which is to get low cost or no cost resources. So how do you work with corporations to frame internships around career development and make sure that they really are getting the experience that you're hoping that they will be able to get?
I think it is relatively challenging for our office to strategically work with corporations to build an internship program. Usually they just take their internships to us because our office, we have 7 people, and then we serve 10,000 students, and then we have 300 companies coming to our career fair last fall, and then we have 100 more coming to our fair. So the volume is huge, and then it's very hard for us to do this outreach and then strategically build this program with corporations. But it's something that we encourage students to keep an eye out for, because there are a lot of internship opportunities, and then they could pick and choose which one they decided to engage with. And then when we help our students to decide what is a good internship opportunity, we ask them to not just look for big titles, because students get fascinated by those, for tech companies, they wanted to work for Apple, those big names, Google, they wanted to work with them. But sometimes these internship programs may not be the best because they're usually very, very low impact. And then it is more of a learning or experiential learning opportunity, but not necessarily for them to engage with real life challenges, or they do not take too much responsibilities. So we ask students to really take a good look at their job description, try to understand the day-to-day responsibilities, what you're hoping to get out of this opportunity. And then also in an interview, it's not just the process of showcasing your skill sets, but it's also your opportunity to learn if this is a good opportunity for you.
Okay. Genevieve, is there more do you want to add to that one?
Yeah, similar to what Rosie shared, I would say that we also ask students to focus on not the larger names, but maybe the smaller companies, boutique firms, where they can really get some great hands-on learning experience and actually be able to have an impact on the job, and maybe not the types of jobs that they, don't get to really be hands-on or similar. And so, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again?
This was about on the corporate side, they often tend to, this was what the question suggested, use interns for low cost or free work and not give them quite the career development experience. And so how can you basically make sure, how do you work with corporations, if you do directly, to try to frame the internships around career development rather than risking that as much as maybe it would be risked?
Yeah, so definitely leaning into what Rosie said about the job description, because employers do actually have the opportunity to upload the jobs themselves onto our job board. Our employment partnerships teams reviews them in order to ensure that it's applicable to our students. Like, for example, if someone's posting engineering jobs, that wouldn't be something that would work for our students because we don't have any engineering programs amongst the 100+ programs that TC has to offer. And so that is one way. And then also having students, check out those companies that maybe they haven't heard of that I mentioned before, where they can actually get the experience that they are looking for.
And out of curiosity, without naming names, have either of you come across stories from students who took an internship and then found that it wasn't really something that helped their career, but they were really just kind of being asked, and if it was quite as much just being asked to get coffee and not do any of the work, but was it, did they kind of find themselves in that position? That's kind of the impression that Gary has had from, and I've certainly heard in the past, but I don't know how much that still happens.
I think it's relative. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think for us at the graduate student level, we really do vet the positions that come into our portal. And so we are ensuring that, and we also talk with employers to make sure that they understand students must be doing work. They should be working on projects. It shouldn't be like getting coffee and running errands and things like that, but they should actually be getting valuable hands-on experience that's going to enhance their learning.
And staying with you just for 1 second, are the internships formalized through TC? I know in some cases they are, because I actually know that, but are all the internships formalized through TC? And does that, just the formal process help you kind of control things a little bit more and be aware of what's going on and whether they're getting the experience that you want?
I think the vetting process is formalized. So employers actually having the opportunity to put their jobs in and then it going through the review. That's more so how the process works for us, is that they are vetted in order to ensure that there's a job description. At times there has to be learning outcomes, like for things like our student employment opportunities, in order to ensure that a student understands what they should be getting out of this experience.
Great. Rosie.
Yeah, so I think our students, anecdotally, I think they're picky because they want technical experiences. So they have, I think, even if the employer posted some type of internship opportunities that probably would use student for less important work, but student will make sure that they get the technical experience. Otherwise, they complain that it's not technical, they're not using their engineering skills. But I think it didn't happen in some of the internship experiences that my students, or at least the student that I interact with. But I think some of the course projects, some students will complain that it's not that technical. They wanted something that's more challenging, even though it's kind of hard for us to evaluate where the level of students' competency is and then give them the appropriate task to work on in terms of their engineering skills or technical skills capabilities.
Great. Well, more questions keep coming in. Beth has a multi-part question, so I think I'll start with just the first one. What percentage, as best you know, of your student body visits one time versus a few times ever versus being what Beth refers to as the frequent flyers, people who are there often? So what's your sense of how often, the division along those lines? Rosie, maybe start with you with the, maybe this may be different for undergrad and grad too.
Sure. I think most of my students are one-time visitor. So I think maybe roughly, I guess, 70-80%. Probably the reason why is a lot of students, they just come in for a resume review or interview prep. But we do definitely get some of the frequent flyers who come in to ask more about the job search strategies or planning in the long term, like how to do networking, some of the job development, career development, skill building. And then I got to see them over the years. Like they probably come at our office to review their resume for their first year, and then for the second year, they started to have some of the more in-depth conversation, like picking out which might be the best experience for them to pursue afterwards. But the majority would be one-time visitors.
I will say that we also have a lot of students that come in for one time, and it's really across our different offerings. So whether they're coming in for events, for one-on-one coaching appointments, or for our drop-ins. And of course, our career fairs and expos. And over time, like Rosie was saying, you can see like who the frequent flyers are. I don't have the data in front of me to give you an estimate of like how much of the student body is visiting our services, but we do know that each semester we are increasing because we're diversifying the ways that we're advertising to students, including the career champions, like we mentioned. Sometimes we'll do tabling in order to get a touch point with students and to help them understand how to use our services. And these are all the ways that we're really working, including our Instagram and social media, to make sure that students know that we're available and here to support them. And once you get into coaching, which is my primary role in the office, you definitely will notice that some students will come maybe once or once a semester, and other students will use the services more frequently.
Great. And then second part, so Beth's next question is following on this. How many students roughly do you see in a day?
I say it depends on the season. So the busiest time for us is usually before the career fair. And then the busiest time of the year is definitely before the fall career fair, where everybody's trying to get their resume reviewed or trying to get prepared for the career fair. And then during the busy time, I think for all of our career coaches, we have different hours that we offer on our calendar. I'm not sure what the platform that everybody else is using, but we use Handshake to set up our appointments. And then I think for my role, I set up 4 hours of coaching appointments, so that roughly, if all filled, it's going to be 8 students during the busiest time. And then during like normal business time, like not too super crazy, we have I have 3 hours available for students. So if all filled, it's going to be 6.
Genevieve.
Yeah, thank you for the question. As a career coach, I see about 20 students per week, and that is consistent throughout the weeks. I think it's just about the difference in who's coming in. Like Rosie was mentioning, the season and the times. So in the spring, we tend to have more education-focused events, and so I'll see more education students, whereas in the fall, we'll have more events focused on all other industries, and so I'll see those students. And also depending on the hiring seasons, like we know like big firms and corporations do their hiring in the fall for summer internships, so we'll see a slight uptick then. And then, of course, like Rosie was mentioning, around events, we just had a career expo last week, so I definitely saw lots of students during that time coming in to get their documents reviewed, mock interviews to prepare. Right now, we have a lot of students preparing for internships, so we're seeing a lot of students coming from mock interviewing. So I would say the amount of students we see is pretty consistent. Just the topic areas are really what varies.
Fantastic. And yet the next part of this question is, what parts of your job do you, if there are any, do you wish you could focus on more? So again, sort of another time question. What do you wish you could focus on more?
I really love supporting students in mock interviewing. I think that's the place where I can make the most impact with students, because as we talked about earlier, they're usually prepared in terms of their academics wise, but not doing, they could be doing a better job of connecting their skills, their strengths, and how they speak to those in an interview. And I really love helping students think of insightful questions to ask during an interview, to really impress employers, show employers that they've done their homework, that they're well-versed in the job description and who the company is, and how that student envisions themselves fitting into that company. And our number one appointment type is document reviews. And so I would really love to see more students coming in for mock interviewing.
Fantastic. Rosie.
Yeah, so my role primarily is one-on-one coaching. I actually would love to have some of the group counseling opportunities if that's available. So I often see students on a one-on-one basis, and that usually make up almost my entire day. But I wish that there are opportunities for us to facilitate maybe a group that could last for several weeks or sometime longer, and then we can work with those students consistently.
Great. And then Beth's last question out of the set relates to automation and scalability. So what, if any, parts of your job do you wish could be automated or more automated, which would then allow you to scale up the number of students that you could reach, whether that's students that could just be aware of the services or students that do a time to counsel or any of those things? What do you think could or should be automated that would help your time and scalability?
one thing in our office is that we just onboarded a new platform, 1220, and it has made making coaching appointments much more seamless, which has freed up a lot of my time in the sense that like I don't have to go in and like approve appointments or things like that. Once a student books an appointment, it's just on the calendar. And so I don't have to do any extra steps to confirm that. And that has really improved my time that I'm able to work with students, because it's freeing up other things that I can do. So I can work on projects and handouts for students and some more of our like access resources that we have open on the platform, instead of just constantly in the platform updating appointments and systems. So I think when you have a good system and it's able to streamline the work that you do, that's really helpful. So us onboarding that new platform has been extremely helpful.
I'd say some of the self-service resources might be easier for students to navigate or allow them to have self-paced learning, because I believe that it could scale up a little bit more if we can save our one-on-one coaching time for those students who need a little bit more guidance on not just showing them here are the resources and you can work on it, but those students who are a little bit more lost or need some of the coaching questions to help them navigate. And if we have the self-service resources, students can easily find it, because sometimes my appointments would usually be, here's our resume template if you haven't checked it out, because they didn't take a look at our website, or maybe it's not easy for them to find out where the resources is located. So we have to focus our conversation a lot on the foundations and basics, but not getting into, beyond what is just the resume formatting and then the structure. So I would wish that we have better structured, self-paced resources.
Oh, thanks for both of you for your answers and perspectives on this. And the questions keep coming. Gary asked a question related to AI. So how are career coaching and coordinating being impacted by how many positions are now being offloaded to AI agents? So he says, I know this is a moving target that you may have to stay ahead of. So how has that affected the way that positions become offloaded to AI agents? Does that affect your coaching and career coaching and career coordination?
Thanks for the question. Yes, it affects our coaching by having the opportunity for us to really educate students on how AI platforms may work, what industries are more likely to use AI platforms, and helping students understand that this is why you should be using language from the job description and making sure that you're putting in those keywords. You want to make sure you're using your industry jargon. And what's really important is to help students understand that perhaps not all industries are using AI, definitely big firms that they're applying to. And it gives me the opportunity to learn more from recruiters and people who are using AI, understanding that a person does eventually check out the resume, but it does go through this screening process. And so understanding what are the tips that we can share with students of how to get past those screenings. And it's some of what I mentioned earlier, using those keywords, understanding the JD, making sure that you're accurately putting things like your date ranges on your resume, because maybe that's something that they're using to understand number of years of experience, or maybe you should be including a summary that has that. I know people are very on the fence about whether or not to include a summary on your document, but these are the ways that we can sort of help students understand how to cater their documents so that they can get through that first round screening.
Great. Are you also seeing jobs themselves that are becoming taken over by AI, and that you might, jobs that you might have recommended in the past that you really don't want to steer people towards certain paths, or has that not really been an issue yet? Just want to stay with this with Genevieve, and then we'll come back to Rosie on all of this.
That's a great question, and I haven't really seen that yet in terms of industries that we're steering students from. What we're more so thinking about is how can students also learn to be using AI themselves and in their roles, because it's not really that AI is going to take over. It's the individuals who know how to use AI and apply it into their industries. And so even in career services and the work that I'm doing, I'm attending lectures. I'm going to participate in an AI bootcamp through NACE next month. And so making sure that I understand these things so that I can share them with students, and so that students can understand what are the learning opportunities and how is it applicable to their field and their industry.
Yeah, Rosie, your thoughts on AI and its various forms and potential forms, its impact?
Yeah, so I definitely know that AI is impacting the industry, and then there's potential that people always talk about. There's threat that they're going to take away some of the jobs. And when I talk to students, or sometimes students actually, they are actually on the trend a little bit more even than I do, because they're all engineering students and they are very well equipped with the skills to utilize AI agents, and then they follow the trends. But some of the things that we tend to focus on is think about what cannot be replaced by AI, which is human interaction. And then I think there's a stronger emphasis on developing your communication skill, leadership, those interpersonal skills, which will make you different from just the AI job. And then also another part is being familiar with AI, and then think about how your work can incorporate AI, maybe become an AI engineer, prompt engineer. That could be the direction that's going, because we believe there are definitely going to be jobs taken by AI, but also going to be job created based on the trend that we're seeing. So it's just more adapting to the world, the changing world, like how you can adapt your skills, but not just staying where you're at, learning about the trends, and then developing yourself towards, like, preparing yourself for future industry or future workforce. That would be the key.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. These are great responses. Really appreciate all of the discussion. And the next question is a little bit different. We'll shift gears a little bit. What strategies would you recommend for students to network effectively, and especially if they're pursuing industry roles? So what would you recommend to help people network? I know we've talked about a few different things, but we'll come back to this one.
Yeah, I definitely recommend students reaching out to people to do informational interviews. We have guides on how to reach out, and then we have resources for students to connect with alumni. And then also we talk to students that networking isn't just one-on-one, but also, for example, the career fairs or employer info sessions. Those type of events are also opportunities for networking. So I think our suggestion is always get plugged in the industry, and then try to network with professionals who works there.
Completely agree with what Rosie shared. Students really have to sort of get their feet wet with talking to people, talking about their skill sets, and also coming to our events. So career fairs, career expos, of course. But at TC, whenever we have events like our Learn and Connect or panels or our mocktails and mock interviews, we really strive to have alumni participate in those events so that students can also engage with them there. And I always tell students, start with your circle, right? Where are you? You're on campus, start with your peers, start with your professors, and start with those industry professionals. You know, oftentimes our professors can really have great connections for us. Our peers may have great connections for us, and we don't want to forget to really talk to the people around us.
Fantastic. Just a little bit of time left. And one more thing I want to ask before we leave, get your perspectives on. Are there gaps you see in higher education today that you think need to be filled to help people be better prepared for the workplace? Like, is there sort of almost a question that's sort of related to, are there places where it's too much ivory tower and people don't see the relevance enough or don't do enough to be really job ready, where there is an opportunity to do so without compromising the ideals and philosophy of what higher education is all about?
We touched upon this a little bit earlier. I really enjoy the fact that we connect with faculty. Connect with faculty is really a great way that we can sort of bridge and fill these gaps. And so at TC Next, we are often invited to do classroom workshops. And that's great because we can meet students right where they are. We're able to meet them during class time, so it's not an extra load on their schedule. Professors will usually request a particular topic, whether that's resumes and cover letters or mock interviewing or navigating a job search, organizing a job search. And so we really give students the opportunity to get some learning, meet someone from our team, and even understand what our resources are, all within a class period or maybe part of a class period. And so continuing to have opportunities like that, and our Career Champions program, it's continuing to expand every semester, where we're able to help make the connection for faculty of how they can incorporate us into their syllabi or encouraging students and referring them to us.
Fantastic. Rosie.
I 100% agree. This is also that we are trying to do. I think ideally we hope to embed the career development into all of our department's curriculum so that it's built into students' academic journey, but not an extra load for them to come to see us or attend other events. I think it's going to be very beneficial if we could have a series of topics that we can cover for students so that everybody can be around the same page in terms of their curriculum. For example, first year, we can focus more on developing those basic understanding of the competencies. And then for the years that's beyond, we can focus more on the practical job search and internship search, or discussing other career opportunities, like pursuing graduate school for students. That's definitely going to be beneficial. And then we can help students better connect the dots and then help them think about career along their academic journey, but not start to worry or panic at the end of their academic journey. And another thing that I think it would be helpful is we can try to have some of the resources built to develop a language for students in communicating their career competencies, because that's the one that I'm seeing students lack a lot in terms of their getting ready for or prepare themselves for the workforce.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great note to end this panel discussion on. Rosie, Genevieve, thank you so much for spending time with us. And I think you're able to stick around a little bit for the discussion forum at 11:30 on other links. So we're going to go ahead. I really enjoyed the discussion. We're going to roll the closing credits, and then I will see all of you who can make it over on the other link for the open discussion that starts in just a minute. So thanks again for a great episode, all of our panelists today, and for both this panel and the previous one. Thanks, everybody.